So, for example, people have looked at well-being for a really long time, and we don't know whether people consider that to be happiness, or is it most important to them that they have positive relationships? Is it more important to have physical health? And so I think one of the things that we might learn from the global workshop is how important those different aspects of flourishing are in different people groups and to different individual peoples.
We've talked about dignity, and I think to start with, some of the key barriers are around the relationship between the individual and society and the state. So do people have fundamental freedoms and agency? Do they feel in charge of themselves? Do they have freedom of movement? Do they have freedom of speech, freedom of assembly? Are they able to engage in political discourse? So fundamentally, the first thing I think for human flourishing from the dignity perspective is, am I respected as an individual? Am I part of society? Am I able to contribute? Is my voice being listened to? I think then you've got the next level is from the point of view of dignity and self-worth, am I able to produce for myself and my family? Am I in a position to engage economically such that I can care for those who I'm responsible for?
I think this question is possibly a very interesting one, because I was sort of thinking about it and considering what the average person might be. And, you know, maybe what we consider to be the average person is kind of someone who doesn't face many deep, enormous struggles or peculiar life circumstances. But actually, I think most people in society at one point or another face enormous challenges, enormous amounts of suffering, peculiar situations. And I think the field of human flourishing kind of gets at targeting those things, because at one point or another, every person, an average person, will encounter things that really harm them or hinder them. And we have to kind of account for the fact that maybe there aren't great safety nets right now for that in society.
Maybe that this is possible, thinking about a society where people can flourish is possible, and it's in our hands as researchers, in our hands as parents, because we are parents, in our hands as funders or policymakers. Is a goal that sounds really big and maybe impossible sometimes, but if we talk about it and we share our ideas, we are going to realize that it's really in our hands and we can do many things to get to that goal.
And I would just say that, you know, a lot of policy has been focused on economic issues, political rights, and that's really important. But what we have found is that in a lot of places in the world where the standard of living, the quality of life is going up, anxiety and depression are also going up, and suicide is going up. And so what are the trade-offs that we've been making when we have a kind of narrow focus on what drives human well-being and human flourishing, and how might we expand that? So that's why it's important to bring policymakers, global leaders, scholars, philanthropists, those who fund this kind of research, government officials together in a dialogue about what really matters, so that we don't just get a partial understanding of human nature and then base policy on that, and then we're surprised when we have all of these terrible outcomes.
In the best case, one should be able to perceive others as more important, more valuable, more dear than oneself. But at least it is crucial that one is able to understand and see oneself and all others as equal or the same. That is, if either of these is the case, if we are able to either consider, look at others, seeing them as more important than oneself, or otherwise meeting others with a sense of oneself and others being exactly the same, entirely equal.
Human flourishing is really important because there's so much pressure you know, in terms of the economy, there's always this kind of almost intrinsic pressure in economic things that people are sort of are feeling almost a stress or a pressure to be more productive and kind of achieve more in terms of concrete results and numbers and all this kind of thing. And I see kind of human flourishing as one of the antidotes to that. So it's really saying, no, we also should focus, and it's fun to focus. That's why we work with technology and game-based kind of apps. It's fun to focus also on the more human side of things and think about how we can live together better. There's a great word in Spanish, convivencia, which means like living together and kind of getting on together. And I think flourishing is really works quite well with that.
What is the point of public policy if not in the long run to promote human flourishing? And that very simple principle, I think, can cascade into multiple things in multiple aspects of our lives, incorporating how we care for the environment, the way we educate young people, what we want from an education system, how we deliver healthcare. The notion that policy should be geared towards human flourishing rather than, say, simple economic metrics is both a really simple idea, but it's also really radical, I think, in its implications.
Human development is not a nice add-on that some people could have as a hobby. It should be a fundamental building block in a democratic, well-functioning society or organization where we all need to grow and develop in order to better face the complexity and the challenges we have in front of us.